Good morning, folks. It's 5:46 a.m., February the 22nd, 2018, so they tell me. And there's much to do today. There's a whole lot I'm going to talk about. I'm probably going to bounce around a whole lot. Right now, concerning the language and my studies on the language, well, I'm definitely further down the road than when I made that last video, the brick wall. Although I think it was clear from what I expressed in that understanding the Hebrew language as it was originally known by our ancestors, the Obari and Yisraelites, Yisraelim, was different than the understanding that we have of it today. And it's all too easy to demonstrate how it's been changed. Now, I am kind of glad that my route to work is full of so many dead zones as far as my phone goes, because I was trying to get a few things off my mind the other day, and I tried to make the live stream because if I just record to my phone and then bring that to the job site, my phone is unusable essentially for the rest of the day, or however long it takes for that to upload. So that's not very convenient. And I think that I just rambled too much. And a good deal of that rambling was me expressing a lot of my frustration, because I have been spending a great deal of time laying a lot of groundwork to offer the world in general, the community of people who want to know and understand what the Hebrew scriptures are saying. And if we can better understand what the Aramaic portions of it are saying too. And you have to understand that we're told that the only extant copies of not only Daniel 2:4 to 7:28, which are massively important pieces of scripture concerning eschatology. I mean, big, universal, worldwide eschatology. It's massive. But we're told that that's all in what we have of it is all in Aramaic, and there is enough significance difference between Aramaic and Hebrew, as far as the language did exist when it was used and understood by our ancestors. There's enough of a difference there for that to be problematic concerning our understanding of it. Now, it's not only that portion of Daniel, but also Ezra. I don't want to say Nehemiah, because that doesn't make any sense to me that Nehemiah would have been written in Aramaic, or them claiming that it was written in Aramaic. Nehemiah shows an obvious disdain for, in a sense, language and culture outside the preservation of the Israelite, or in his case, Judahite language and culture. So that wouldn't make sense at all. But I'll have to double check, because now that I think about it, I think that it is claimed that they are in Aramaic. Right there, Aramaic portions of the Old Testament. And we can go to Wikipedia if we have to. So, okay. The history. And they're going to try to tell us what the differences are. Undisputed occurrences. Aha. Genesis 31:47, Jeremiah 10:11. See, there go. Daniel 2:4 through 7:28, and Ezra 4:8 through 6:18, and 7:12 through 26. So they're saying just portions of Ezra. So yeah, nothing from Nehemiah. Now, some actually accuse Ezra of being the scribe that changed Hebrew to the point of there's some that claim that Ezra's the scribe who actually introduced the Nakud. And there's no foundation for that whatsoever. That's a flight of fancy. So, okay. This is my new document. All right. So I've got a document up here that I wrote myself. And it contains 50 words. And I'm going to read this to you here real quick, okay? And he, Beguach, the man, until Mji of Gifto. That is why men call the place Skemim of the tired Bamut. So Jim went forward from there to the Hraf of the water, and there swore to Yahweh to never vigitim at the Frang. That place is in the Zunkalin. Do you understand? Does that help you? Does that help you figure out and understand the reason that happened? Or why Jim did what he did to the man at the beginning, or swore what he swore to Yahweh, to never vigitim at the Frang? Do you understand? You see, these few sentences contain 50 words. Out of those 50 words, 9 of them are not understandable. There's no lexicography for these words. And because of that, I defy anyone to then extrapolate or extract doctrine and extrapolate any wisdom or teaching from that to go ahead. You see, I've told you in the past that it's commonly known, although not many people want to admit it. They're not widely publishing this. That 20% of the Hebrew biblical Hebrew lexicography is unknown. It can't be proven. Not by the system they use, not by the Masoretic rules and what they understand about it, you see. 20%. And I've told you that furthermore, in my studies thus far, I could call BS on a lot of their words that they say that they do understand, that really is the meaning of that word. If I were to have inserted 20% of unknown words into these few sentences I just read you, I would have had to have actually slipped at least one more unknown word in there. That's not even 20% of the words. All of those, to your ears, incoherent words in there, they don't even add up to 20%. They're just short. It's only 9 out of 50. And I hope that what that does is illustrate to you the real problem we're looking at. So I suppose this helps to get an idea of my current frustration with so many people out there who are continually pontificating on scriptures and applying those scriptures to current world events or past world events, and doing this even without a tint of embarrassment, since they're pulling it all from English translations of languages that we admittedly don't fully know or understand. You see, at this point in time, I'm not sure that I see a need for us to passionately argue doctrines and ideologies, because we don't have a full understanding. If everything in the New Testament is fulfillment and consummation of everything demonstrated to us in the Old Testament, and we don't understand a good 20% of the words being used in the Old Testament, then how is it that we can properly teach any kind of a doctrine and have any kind of solid theology that will separate over and argue over things that we think are somehow strong enough to teach others a way that they should think or do or act? And concerning this, the rubber meets the road. In a good illustration, there is a guy in the realm of identity, which I'm going to remind everyone again, I am not a Christian identitarian. If by identitarian you mean all of those who believe that the only people who have been, are being, and will be saved is genetic Israelites. Now, if you want to call an identitarian somebody who, through their searching, has found that out of all the peoples of the earth, the peoples who most fit the eschatological sketch of Israel in these days and times of ours are the Northern European Caucasians, and maybe more than that. I'm not 100%, but if you want to call me an identitarian because of that, because I say that it appears to me that the northern type European is the most likely candidate for the descendants of Israel to this day, then fine. But the problem is that I've just encountered far too many voices in what is labeled as Christian identity that have far too much bigotry and far too little love of the Father and the Son for me to want to group myself by title with them. So I was listening to a particular identitarian who said that he was speaking to an evangelical Christian who had invited him to come and fellowship with this group of people at this evangelical's church body, church building. A lot of church bodies, church buildings, they have dinners together frequently after services, which I think is a great idea. More church bodies should do that, should feast together. I think that's a common theme that we see throughout the Bible, is us gathering and feasting together. And then there's the love feasts, mentioned in the New Testament also. Anyways, so this guy said, and he said this proudly, that he told this guy that he couldn't come and fellowship with them because they were defiled, because they ate swine flesh. They did not eat clean foods, so they were defiled. And he would not come and fellowship with them because they were defiled. Now, when I heard this, I asked this gentleman on this video if he could please prove the lexicography of those clean and unclean beasts as listed in Leviticus 11 and elsewhere in Deuteronomy. To which I got a reply. I don't know if it was from him or just a listener, that it's very clear, the list of clean and unclean animals that can be eaten in Leviticus 11 and Deuteronomy. And I said, yes, well, it's clear that there are words on a page that are put together into thoughts and ideas. The problem is the burden of proof is upon you if you want to say that swine flesh pollutes a man and you cannot eat with them because they are polluted. All right, wonderful. Why don't you prove that any particular animal in there is a swine, and that swine flesh is filthy, and that to this day no one should be fellowshipped with because they eat pork? They're going to have some trouble. I can tell you for a fact that Leviticus is full of particular words that we don't know the lexicography to. That's a fact. So I don't see what all the fighting and the arguing and the just hating one another and whatnot, just for the, I guess, just so that you can be angry. Maybe just so you can isolate. Maybe just so you can glory in your own flesh, thinking that there is anything better about your flesh than the flesh of another, when all flesh is tainted by sin. So until we get these things figured out, this base language figured out, all the theorizing and pontificating that so many do, I guess I don't want to say that it's entirely moot, but a good deal of it, I believe, is. Now, I have started so many various documents that contain lists of types of Hebrew parent roots, 2-letter roots and 3-letter roots. And I'm sorry for calling them letters. They're actually characters or icons, pictographs, glyphs, whatever you want to call them, but not letters because they have meaning. They are images. The thing is, I did most of these lists at first, and I'm still working on these lists by hand on lined notebook paper, because that is the only way I can really do this with any kind of speed whatsoever. But when it comes to taking all of these things and then transferring them into I'm going to start rolling my mouse over some of the documents that I'm currently working on. This document here is a sketch of each tribe, who they were, the significant things that the patriarchs themselves did, their blessings from Jacob, Moses, anyone else, curses from anyone else, and specifically their land inheritance. This is all done using the Hebrew character that I made into a font based on all the characters that I have looked at in the last year. This is a beta, so it can change. The next list is this is the 2-icon or 2-character parent roots. How they are represented in their Masoretic form today, their Strong's reference number, and the form that they appear in the texts themselves, how they are translated, and what is their most likely translation. Okay, that's another list. And I have the full list of all 2-character parent roots all written out by hand that have to be translated into these charts. And these charts, who are they for? They are for the use and edification of the saints. That's precisely what they're for, to glorify our God here in this world. The next one is a alphabetical list of the Hebrew characters and their current name or title, and whether or not the evidence we see concerning that name should lead us to believe that that character should be called by that name. Because one of the things that's going to have to be done is these characters are going to have to be given new names when we understand exactly what they stand for. The next list is a list of common English words and the Hebrew words listed as translated from. So what I do for this is I go to a site that has a complete A to Z listing of all the English words that occur in the King James translation of the Bible. Because remember, I told you that Strong's, which is one of the most exhaustive and complete listings of Hebrew and Greek words, is coded to King James. So for the purposes of getting further down the road and figuring these things out, it's most productive to work from the King James doing this. I don't put any stock into the King James as a translation. I don't put any stock into Strong's Concordance as a good tool for understanding the Hebrew or the Greek. Now, this is just a representation of a few lists that I have. And for instance, these 2-character parents that have to be made into this chart for the benefit and edification of the saints, that's only one of a number of different types of 2- and 3-character parent roots that I have listed. This is so that we can try to understand all this bulk. in the Old Testament, which has so much bearing on the New, so that we can have a unity of mind, so that when these charlatans and these con men, these slick talkers and sophists want to keep spreading old lies that they say are new about the character, the nature of the God of the Scriptures and what the Scriptures are in fact saying, that the saints can know for a fact what the Scriptures are saying and clearly present an objective argument against all the inflammatory things that the enemy just continues to spew out of their mouths. So essentially, there's going to have to be a team of people that are willing to take this, that are willing to download onto their computer whatever the latest version of LibreOffice is, and receive basically document assignments from me and follow through on those things in an organized, logical way to produce these lists and these charts, this information that can only help to increase the understanding of those people that we call our brothers and our sisters. I make my email address available all the time, and I do correspond to a number of subscribers, and some of my correspondence is conversational. Some of the correspondence is people offering various ideas and what they think are helps. And, you know, I always appreciate whatever it is people want to offer. I do. At this point in time, what I would prefer, though, is anybody who's willing to commit time, because this all takes time. Anybody who's willing to commit to that kind of time and do the work, not on a whim, but to do the work, to contact me. I'll put my email address in the description again. So outside of that, there are a few things that I do want to bring up, because I'm at a certain point in so many facets of study that, I can't really present a finished product. I think it was, it might have really been shooting the moon to think that I could present at the point in time when I did videos that were hoping, I guess, to provide a whole lot more clarity on the individual letters. I don't know that I'm there yet. But the thing is, as time goes by, I get greater and greater and stronger impressions of what these characters are, or how they should be used, viewed, interpreted. So there's progress being made. But right now, I've got a number of not only impressions, but things that I've come across that are, as far as I'm concerned, are of interest. And I'm going to kind of show you a few. And I may have to pause and restart so I can get queued up to the places where I need to be without you sitting and waiting for me to, throw in the searches or get there or whatever. And I'm just going to present you with a few things. Not all of them are that in-depth, but, when you keep absorbing all of this information and you've got it stored up in your head, sometimes you have to get it back out of there to make more room for more. So that will explain the somewhat sporadic nature of this particular video. Okay, so I would like to start by spending a few minutes discussing this idea that the flood of Noah, or actually Na, was worldwide. Now, I call him Na because his name actually only consists of two characters, the N or Nun, and the H or Het, or they call Ket or Chet, N and H, Na. The Masoretes took it upon themselves to add the proper Nakud to force someone to put an O sound in there. Now, did they extract a number of O's or a vowel that we are not aware of and replace it with the Nakud? At this point in time, I don't know. But I know that on the page in the text, his name consists of an N and an H, Na. So whether or not his flood was worldwide, there's some problems. And I'm not going to claim that I've got all of the answers or solutions to these problems. But I would like to point your attention to Genesis chapter 2. Now remember, Masha, or Moses, Masha is credited with the Torah. And so in Genesis, and we know this because we actually see three of these rivers again, and the lands that they are in relation to geographically still exist at the time of Noah and Israel and them going into the promised land and forward. Now again, I made the error of calling them rivers because I don't yet know that they are rivers, but I do believe that they are water. They're some kind of water. But starting in Genesis 2:10, it says, "And a river," and we don't know that, a waterway, went out of Odin to water the Gan, or garden, and from thence it was parted and became into 4 heads, or chiefs. The name of the first is Pishun. That is which compasseth, and I don't know if that's absolutely encompass or not, the whole land of Huilah. Now remember, when Yisrael came back into the land, the promised land, there were a people living there called the Hui, which is usually translated into English as Hivite. Well, this is a land of Huilah. Now it says where there is gold, the gold of that land is good. Gold is one of those words that might have an unknown lexicography. There is bdellium and the onyx stone. Again, both of those things possibly unknown lexicography. This is why we have to know the character. We have to know the language so we can know these things and understand. The name of the second waterway is Gehun. The same is that which compasseth the whole land of Cush. The name of the third waterway is Hadquel, and it is that which goes towards the east of Ashur, and the fourth is Parath. Now, Parath is all over the place in the rest of scriptures, and 2 of the other 3 waterways are mentioned at least one time later on down the road. So these waterways are contemporary, at the time when Masha is writing this. They are contemporary at the time of the judges, Joshua, earlier the patriarchs, and later the books of the Kings, Chronicles, the prophets. Jeremiah goes to the Parath, which is translated as Euphrates. You see, the problem here is this. These waterways, they still exist throughout the writings of Scripture. And in fact, if we trust the Greek translations in the New Testament, the Euphrates is actually mentioned again twice in Revelation. Is it the same river? The same waterway? I don't know. But I do know this. The power of a flood is often beyond comprehension. And now where I live, there was just, we got over a foot of snow a week or so ago. And that was on top of a bit of snow we already had. So we had a lot of snow. And then a few days ago, it warmed up amazingly. It was very warm for a couple of days and rained. Warm rain. The flooding was pretty extensive. A number of roads have been shut because the rivers near them had swallowed them up. The destruction to the roads just from that amount of snow, the quick thaw, and the rain has been amazing. That's just from a foot or so of snow and then a warm spell with rain. It caused damage all over the place. That's nothing. That's nothing compared to what some of the major floods do in some areas that are, say, towns built on the slopes of or at the bottom of a number of mountains that have a propensity to flood. The damage can be so utterly catastrophic that a great flood coming off a mountain can bury a city to a certain degree. It can take down large buildings, because when you have a flood, you don't just have water. When you have a flood, that water is a medium that transports every possible kind of solid object that exists. When large rivers, large fast-moving rivers, overflow dramatically, the amount of debris that they move sometimes boggles the mind. They can move boulders the size of cars and trucks, and not to mention the huge trees, structures made of wood and steel and stone in their way, and the damage to the landscape is sometimes irreparable. Now you have to take that understanding of what small floods can do to a landscape, and then you have to transpose that into the idea of a worldwide flood. There would be absolutely nothing to stop these waters. I can't begin to imagine, nor do I want to imagine, what the size of the waves could be. or the size of the there would gather together essentially debris masses that, who knows, they could be the size of small countries traveling around in this worldwide water with such great violence the mind can't even grasp. Now, that's just on the surface. Now, at ground level, again, small floods transport rocks and vehicles and anything big like that. They transport these things and they use them like jackhammers. A flood, just a localized flood, can absolutely smash up rocks and level hillsides. It's utterly amazing. So you have to consider that what would be happening is the entire landscape in a worldwide flood, the entire landscape would be upheaved and set back down, and upheaved and set back down, and upheaved and set back down. Everything would be mixed with everything, everywhere. All seeds of types of specific trees and plants would be mixed and deposited everywhere. It would utterly reface the entire landscape. But yet, these four waterways that we always see translated as rivers, that went out of the Garden of Eden, the Gan Eden, they are still in existence, running their same course at the time of Moses, or Moshe, as they were at the time of Adam and Hua, Eve. I think that's amazing that those, if they were rivers, those four rivers, would come through the unimaginable catastrophe and refacing of a worldwide flood unscathed. Now, you know, like many of you, I started out years ago listening to a whole lot of Kent Hovind. And, you know, I thought it was awesome. He'd go to universities and, you know, he'd win these debates against all these various academics and whatnot. And boy, he really pulled a number on everybody, didn't he, the last few years? But he used to always say, because he did a number of debates on whether or not there was a worldwide flood at the time of Noah. And he used to say, well, if the flood was only going to be local, why did he have Noah build an ark? Why didn't he just tell him to move? And, you know, without being a botanist and an entomologist and ichthyologist and every other kind of specific naturalist there is, who I'm sure have an abundant amount of information above and beyond what I know, I would say this from my paltry observations of the world I live in, the small world I live in. Any time that you introduce a new species of anything into an ecosystem that currently exists, you run the risk of immense damage to that ecosystem. I don't care if it's a plant or if it's something as small as a ladybug or something as imposing as a python. You see, I've experienced, even where I live in the American Midwest, the introduction of these Japanese ladybugs a decade or two ago that completely upset the ecosystem here. And now you have the introduction of a type of Chinese praying mantis that's doing the same thing. It's causing a lot of problems with the current ecosystem because of what they hunt and eat. In South Australia, the farmers there deal with, every few years now, a plague of house mice. The plagues are so horrific that they can't kill and burn them fast enough. They gather mounds, huge, enormous mounds of these things and have to destroy them. That's how bad these plagues of house mice get in South Australia. And the reason for that is because these house mice were introduced to the Australian ecosystem. And these house mice have very few natural predators in that South Australian ecosystem. So they are wreaking havoc on that ecosystem. There are people who have for some time been releasing their exotic constrictor snakes into the wilds of the swamps and outbacks of Florida. And it is theorized that what is happening is these snakes with few natural predators in the Everglades and the Florida outback are increasing in size so amazingly that it may not be very long until we start, depending on how much the media suppresses these kinds of stories, start hearing these stories about people out in the Everglades encountering these gigantic pythons and various constrictors that don't belong there. They don't belong there because they don't have enough natural predators to help quell their numbers. This is the kind of problem that occurs when you introduce a foreign species of any kind into a specific ecosystem. You see, because we know that the world isn't the world. The world is not uniform. This world is made up of many different lands with their own ecosystems. And all their ecosystems are so fine-tuned and delicately balanced that all you have to do is introduce one item in addition to really mess the whole thing up. So, why didn't Noah and all those specific animals just move? Well, I would say that that's one reason. And then when you add to that the fact that long after Noah's flood, you see a people called the Kini, Q-Y-N, with a Y at the end denoting a people of Kini. You see Kini. Now that name Qyn. You'll find it first. I'm glad I'm still in Genesis, because I will go forward to 4. Now, here's the first occurrence. Qyn 714. Keen. Okay? It says, the name of the first child, also of a place in Palestine, and of an oriental tribe. Gosh, I don't know why it would be an oriental tribe. Do you think that just by coincidence, this oriental, let's just say eastern, because we know that Keen had to go east, Kedem, into the land of Nud, which is really just wandering. And now how he went there, I don't know. So anyways, 7014 is Keen. Let's do it here. Yeah. So 7014. Search. You're going to see pretty much all the references in Genesis chapter 4 until you get to Numbers 24:22. Nevertheless, the Kenite shall be wasted until Ashur shall carry you away captive. And then in Joshua 15:57, Cain was one of the cities that were taken by one of the various tribes of Yisrael. Now, that's not the only references. We have Kin'e, and here we have Kun-E. That so-called yod at the end there, that E, denotes a people of. You can see that with anyone. You can see that with the Amorite. It's Amori. The Jebusite is Yebusi. The Judahite is Yehudi. And here we've got Keni. Genesis 15, long after Noah's flood. The Keni and the Kenazi and the Kadmoni. Numbers 24:21. This is when Balaam is giving his blessings and curses. And I just read that one. And Judges 1:16, the children of the Keni. Judges 4:11, now Eber the Keni. And so on and so forth. So we have Keni. Now, you could argue and say that it is a coincidence, that is just a tribe that we actually don't have a genealogy for. Like, we don't have one of Noah's sons giving birth to a Keen. And I'll tell you something. These people, they would have known their history. They would have known that the first man born named Keen was murdered his brother, and was thus cursed from the Adamah, the soil, and relegated to a life of wandering. The land of Nud. I mean, I guess he didn't wander his whole life since he built a city. You have to stay in one place, I guess, to build a city, right? But, given the fact that everybody would know history like that, what are the odds that somebody would actually want to name their child after the first murderer who murdered his brother? It's kind of like, certain names, they get a real, they get a real kibosh on them. And it would seem that only the most morbid person would want to give their child that name, because names become accursed. A name is a reputation. And when it becomes accursed like that, people aren't really lining up to name their children that name. And furthermore, since the Bible never tells us that there is a distinction, just the same way as with Gihon, the Gihon that we see being routed, the upper watercourse of it being routed to the west side of the city of Duid, which is Zion. There's nothing in the scripture that tells us that that is a different Gihon. It doesn't tell us that it is a spring named Gihon. It is simply Gihon. So when we see a Keen, and we're not told that it's a different Keen, then if we can apply Occam's razor, we would have to assume that these people are in some way descendants of the only Keen we know of. So that's just thoughts on the flood. Now, as a sort of a segue from that, as part of sketching out the tribes and their inheritance to get an idea of the geography of the land, so we can determine whether or not these events ever took place over in the Middle East. Now, I find this to be vastly important. Because for one reason, there is, and has been for some time, a conspiracy of very powerful people who are not Jews. I don't know what they are, but if we're to believe any of the words of Jesus from Revelation 2:9 and 3:9, we would know that eschatologically there will be people who call themselves Iudeos, Jews of Judah, that are not. He doesn't say everybody who calls themselves Yehudi or Iudeos of Judah are imposters, but there are those who are. Because I believe we have a very powerful group of imposters who have taken over this land and who have murdered their way through this land. And now I'm not pointing the accusative finger at everyone who dwells there, everyone who believes that their genealogy is from Judah per se, because we're talking about this being established in 1948. Now, many people have been born and raised there not knowing anything else. But that's the way that these evil, powerful people do things. They use people, oftentimes even without any wicked motives, people who are wrongly informed, uninformed, people who are deceived, to populate Palestine into the state of Israel in the 40s when they did. They really had to put a lot of pressure on the people who identified as Jews to go over there, because it's not a great place. So the geography matters because we have this conspiracy of very evil shaitan that have no business being over there, causing wars and conflicts with the people in the land and absolutely everyone everywhere around them. Now, if you can prove that it never happened there anyways, I would say that that's a good argument that those people shouldn't even be there. Does that mean everyone who identifies as a Jew over there should be expelled? Well, based on the population that there seems to be enough land. And we could talk about reparations, and I tell you what, the state of Israel is pulling in so much money through extortion and lies annually that they certainly could afford to absolutely pay some major reparations, first to the Palestinians, and next to the neighboring peoples that they have done nothing but war with and murder and traumatize and everything else, and then also to the German people and the American people that they have been extorting. And how about the Western Christian population, completely duped because most of them won't even crack open their Bible and study to show themselves approved. But hey, that's probably a rabbit trail. The whole point is, it is important where this stuff happened. And so I've been doing my small part to try to point out inconsistencies. So let me go with this one. Now, there is a waterway, a Nair, called the Parath, right? And it is Strong's 6578. 6578. Search. Now, this waterway, Parath, we know that it is somewhere in a near proximity to the land of promise. And you can just, punch in 6578 and look at all the quotes, and remember that not all the words around this word that we're looking at are going to be exactly right either. I was just looking at portions of the book of Isaiah before I made this video, and boy, the translational chicanery. It's not laughable. It's just, you hang your head and pray that the Father will deliver us from this famine of the word. So yeah, unto Lebanon. Now, yeah, and I've pointed this out before, right? Because I've talked a little bit about the Parath, which is translated as Euphrates. Like Deuteronomy 1:7, turn you and take your journey and go to the mount of the Amorites and unto all the places nigh thereunto, in the plain, in the hills, in the vale, and in the south, and by the seaside, and to the land of the Canaanites, and unto Lebanon, unto the great river, the river Euphrates. Now, we've done these maps, but I want to remind you, okay? Maybe I'll just open up a Google Maps, right? There we go, map of the Middle East. Here we go, a Google map. And even though these maps don't, they don't specialize in pointing out rivers very much, we can see where rivers are. Now, one thing you'll find that's interesting, though, is when we go over here and we try to get our bearings as far as where the Euphrates is, and it's going to be right here. Okay, you got the Persian Gulf, Euphrates, and then Tigris over here. And now here we can clearly see what the path of the Nile is, right, through Egypt. Over here, the Euphrates it's harder to see its path, but it runs far north of what is Lebanon today, and through Syria and Iraq. It has a number of like smaller lakes along its course. Here we got Tigris there, and here now we can see here's the Euphrates. First, you got to zoom way in, and you see this lake Assad is along the path of the Euphrates. Pull out. Now you see, because it goes up here, okay, and then all the way over to here, and you get a wide shot. Get a wide shot of what the path of Euphrates is. Persian Gulf, okay, up here, Baghdad, northern part of Syria, and then continues upwards. Oh, heck, it didn't go anywhere near Lebanon. But Lebanon is mentioned all the time in relation to the Perath, which they translate Euphrates. You see? And unto Lebanon, unto the great river, the river Euphrates. Well, guys, I mean, I know that you're twisting things around, but I would hope that you could at least get, like, the modern rivers and countries to line up, because they're nowhere near one another. And there's a number of times when you're going to see Lebanon and the Euphrates as synonymous. You will see that Euphrates most oftentimes referred to in the north more than the east. Now, if that wasn't enough, this is one of my favorite things. It's Genesis 15:18, where Yahweh is promising Abram the land that his descendants are going to inherit. And he says, in the same day Yahweh made a covenant with Abram, saying, unto thy seed have I given this land. From the river of Matzarim, they say Egypt, unto the great river. So it's actually unto the Ner Gadol, the Ner Perath, the great river, from the river of Egypt unto the great river, the river Euphrates, the great river. I hope I can get these. Oh, no, go way back. I hope I can get these search results to come up that I did the other day. So let me see here real quick. Here we go. Let's try top 10 rivers of the world. I'm sure if Yahweh refers to the Euphrates or Perath as the great river, the Ner Gadol, in the same verse as he refers to the river of Egypt. So in contrast, that would be a greater river than the river of Egypt. The great river, the river Euphrates. Oh, here we go. Top 10 largest rivers in the world. What is it? Oh, the Nile. The Nile's number one. You know what? I would have expected to see Euphrates. That's weird. Nile's number one. Well, you know what? Maybe their criteria is different than Yahweh's. So maybe Euphrates will be number 2. Nope. The Amazon. Number 3, the Yangtze. Number 4, Mississippi. Well, it's got to be in here, right? It's going to have to at least be in the top 10, right? Now, let me see. Number 5, Yenisei. Number 6, the Yellow River. Number 7, the Ob River. Number 8, the Parana River. Number 9, the Congo River. Number 10, the Amur River. Well, where is Euphrates? Let me try another search here. How about, let's just do, let's see. Largest rivers of the world list. Let's just say that's some good syntax, John. Oh, here we go. Hey, list of rivers by discharge. So that's a good thing, you know, how much water they're putting out. This is a big list. Let's see. 1 And I'm just going to start listing them in order. So number 1 is Amazon because it's got the most discharge. Now in the other one, number 1 was Nile because the Nile covers the most ground. I mean, it covers a lot of ground, man, the Nile. But anyways, so let's see. Starting with number 1 being Amazon, then Congo, Ganges, Orinoco, Madeira, Yangtze, Negro, Rio de la Plata, Yenisei, Brahmaputra, Japura, Parana, Lena, St. Lawrence, Mississippi, Maranon, Ganges, Mekong, Tocantins, Tapanos, Ucayali, Irrawaddy, I know the Euphrates got to be here somewhere. Good grief, I'm already in 24. Amur, Purus, Beni, Mackenzie, Quad, Zingu, Pearl, Mamare, Putumayo, Juru, Kasai, Guevara, Volga, Ohio, Columbia, Danube, Zimbabwe, Magdalena. Stop me when you hear Euphrates, okay? Napo, Indus, Meta, Yukon, Madre de Dios, Araguaia, Capuas. Obviously, my Spanish is a little rusty. Fly. Niagara, Niger, Uruguay, Barito, Aldan, Branco, Detroit, St. Clair, Atrato, Salweden. You're telling me that the Euphrates doesn't have anything better to offer than what comes out of Detroit? Salween, Caroni, Mamberano, Angara, Juruena, Kama, Ubangi, Chindwin, Tele Perez, Pecora, Apaporis, Sepik, Kolyama, I can't even pronounce that, Niziana, Tunguska, okay, Tunguska, Upper Megna, Gadavari, Heualaga, Fraser, Caladan, Slave, Northern Divina, Katagana, Kikori, Paranaiba, Juta, Kora, Ganganara, Irtish. I'm in 87. 91 is the Nile by volume. So we've hit the Nile by volume now, okay? And we're still not seeing the Euphrates, right? Shouldn't the Euphrates at least be in front of it by volume? It's nowhere near as long, right? It's nowhere near as wide, right? But it should be somewhere like in volume, right? Tigray, Kwango, Paraguay, red, Ufalis, yellow. Go on and on. On and on. Missouri, Rio Grande, all the rivers of North America have already been listed far above in output. That's 139 rivers. 139 rivers. I just went through. 139. And Euphrates is nowhere to be seen. No. They have outflow. Okay, so all these rivers they listed, they list the rivers that they outflow into. Okay. I'm just scrolling through to see if they outflow into the Great River. You've got the Nile and the Euphrates. Oh, all right, fine, not the Nile. This is why people have to play word games, because people say, well, the river of Egypt probably refers to some wadi that we can see from high airplane pictures that exists there. And it probably means the wadi maybe or something. But the funny thing is, even if you were to compare the Euphrates of today to nearly any river, and Yahweh knows all the rivers of the world, you know. But he's going to call the Euphrates great. Now, interestingly enough, I can just do a little search on the Euphrates. It's funny what what perspective can do, because you don't know how many feet this is. crossed, and you don't know the depth or anything. But when you look at it like this, you look and you say, oh, that looks like it could be a mighty river. Look how placid it is, too. So it's not pushing. It's not pushing some hard flow. And here's a map of it again. You see that? Goes nowhere near Lebanon. Nowhere near Lebanon. You want to get to the Euphrates, you're crossing a desert, buddy. End of story. View of the Murat River. Maybe that's a tributary. I can't even tell there's a river there. That's pathetic. It says this is supposed to be a French map from the 17th century showing the Euphrates and the Tigris. Okay. Some life, I guess, on the river. Yeah. Oh. Keban Dam in Turkey. First dam on the Euphrates after it emerges from the confluence of the Karasu in the Muratsu. Qual at-Jabbar in Syria, once perched on a hilltop overlooking the Euphrates Valley, but now turned into an island by the flooding of Lake Assad. A fishing boat in the Euphrates, southern Iraq. Look how placid that is. Look how placid that is. I have a river that I grew up near called the Kankakee. That's at least this size. At least. So, what are you going to do? And look here. You see all those bridges? Because it's so easy to build bridges across, because it's not that big a deal. You may tell me, oh, well, it's a pretty decent sized river. Yeah, well, there's a lot. It's not even making it in any of the top lists of the world's rivers. But I'm telling you right now, Yahweh doesn't say the great river once. He says it again and again. Joshua 1:4, from the wilderness and the Lebanon unto the great Ner, the Ner Parath, translated Euphrates. I'm going to keep reminding you that I don't know that Ner is river, but that's how it's always translated. And in fact, I've been uncovering information that tell me I need to examine very closely whether these waterways or bodies of water called Ner are rivers at all. And to the Euphrates and pertain. So we've got 2 times that it's called the Great. The Great. Especially when it's said in the same verse as the river of Egypt, which, I mean, we can dance around all day. But look, if you told anybody the river of Egypt, what are they going to think of? Going to think of the Nile. Now, I'm going through this kind of fast, and I believe there's at least one other time where it's called the Great River. Great River, Great River. So there's the 2 times, and then Joshua 3 times. Okay, yeah, it's at least 3 times. And as far as worldwide rivers go, it doesn't even make it into the top 100. It isn't where it's supposed to be. The tribe of Reuben spread out from the east of where they were at. So they were supposed to be to the east of Jordan. They spread out east from there all the way to the Parath, translated Euphrates. Not with the Syrian desert there. That land over there is not a good land. These people were agrarian people. They had flocks. They farmed. They would not be viewing this land as wonderful land. I'm sorry. Again, I guess the argument that could be made that it's been refaced. And I guess that's a bridge that we're going to have to cross when we get to it. Bridges is another thing. But anyways, So you can take my word. I'm on this, but I'm one man, and my day only has 24 hours. Um, and I'm doing my best to try to figure out how this mapping should be done. I can tell you one thing. I'm getting ready to do the charting out of the inheritance of Judah, and I stumbled across the lists of the cities and villages and surrounding areas that Judah inherited. And when you hear it, you're going to say, there's just no way. There's just no way that that many peoples that were agrarian peoples ever dwelt in that area that we're being told that they dwelt in. There's no possible way. So we'll get to that. I'm at 120, so hopefully, I have more good things to offer with more conclusions, but you don't always get conclusions. Sometimes when you take that red pill, you get a lot more questions than answers, but it comes with the territory, and I wouldn't have it any other way. So until next time, everybody take care of yourselves, please, and your neighbors, and bless you.